All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the December 18th, 2024 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 6:59 p.m. In attendance, myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber, Vice Chair Donna D., and Supervisors Jim Johnson, Don Dowling, and Betsy Odgers. Jim Johnson is joining us via Zoom. Also in attendance, our Township Solicitor Guy Donatelli via Zoom. Stan Corbett I don't know if Ron Reagan has joined us or not. Doesn't look like he's joined us yet. Township Operations Manager Jeff Eastburn, Township Controller and Office Manager Melissa Ortega, who is joining us virtually, and Township Secretary Stacy Hollis. And there are currently, if I look at Zoom, something like 21 and another maybe 10 folks in here, about 30 folks from the public in attendance. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we've got some seats right up here, up in front, if folks want to sit here. You don't have to sit in the back. We're not going to be smashing any watermelons, so you're not going to get covered in any debris. All right, so now I'd like to open the floor to public comment. Public comment may include anything relating to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state their name, whether they are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment? And if you're online, please remember to unmute your mics to speak.
Approve the November 20th, 2024 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes. Could I have a second for that? All right, hi, Betsy. Any conversation, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. You're good. Okay, we're 5-0. Just want to check for Jim. Okay, Jim, I'll turn to you.
So the treasurer's report for the month of November is the report includes the following disbursements: the general fund with disbursements and transfers of $79,433.83. The Park and Rec Fund with disbursements of $101.78. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $5,350.16. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $0. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $0. And the Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $2,699,796.79. So I'll make a motion that the board approve the November 2024 Treasury Report as presented by Melissa Ortega, or myself, I should say.
Oh, well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Don. Any discussion? All right, no discussion, and all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. And I think that was a 5-0 vote, so it carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I have the zoning officer's report. This report was compiled by the Township Zoning Officer, Mark Gordon. In the month of November 2024, there were 5 permits issued, $925 in permit fees, 0 in miscellaneous fees, 0 in recreations and open space fees, 0 in impact fees were collected, and 30 inspections were performed.
Okay. And I have to introduce John Gottsart for the Planning Commission. John, are you on there? Does anybody see whether he's on?
I don't see him.
Yeah, I don't see him
Okay.
either. Okay. So for now, we can postpone unless you have something to read.
No, we can postpone it and Guy's gonna hit 99% of it.
Okay, that's fine. Great. All right, so now let's move on to business. The first budget is the budget item. So we go through this every year. We start our budget process in November. Actually, we started early in October. We discussed last year's budget, make some moderate changes to account for inflation or if there's anything that's going to be changing over the year. Very little changes year over year, I think. We try to keep costs where they are. We certainly don't want to increase the cost of running the township. So the process was initially rolling out and discussing the budget in October. The board went through the budget during the November meeting, at which time we voted to publicize the budget, which means we just put it out into the newspaper and for review by the public. Incidentally, all of our budget items are always open on the website. It's completely open to a review by residents. And tonight, I don't believe we received any comments from the public. We're going to talk about approving the 2025 budget. So I'm going to start with the motion and then we'll just open it up for discussion. That makes sense. So I make a motion to approve the previously advertised and reviewed township budget for 2025 as it was presented by Franklin Township's controller and office manager, Melissa Ortega. Can I have a second? Oh, thank you, Betsy. All right, so let's open for discussion. Do we have anything we want to add about this year's budget? Anything that stood out that we want to talk about?
We've gone over it very well.
Yeah, so this will be the third.
I think the only comment I would have, and I've kind of said this at almost every meeting when we talk about the budget, is the thing that's hanging over our head is MS4. And so what we did as a group, we went over every line of the budget to see where we could cut costs or definitely not increase cost, with the intention of putting whatever we could towards MS4. We probably haven't put enough there, but we put what we could. But on the other side, Jeff and Pannoni, they're our engineering firm, are working very closely along with Ron Reagan to try to get us some grants. So that's a way that we're trying to offset that issue, but we won't know that for a while. So we continue to plan to have as much money as we can in MS4 because we don't have a choice about it. It's a government mandate. But we are also looking for other ways to finance this, as many options that are out there we're trying to explore. So that's just where we're at with the MS4 part.
Yeah, thanks for actually bringing that up. And it's, we talk about this, I think, every meeting. It's one of my favorite topics. And I think, just to put it in perspective, the MS4 requirement for our township, if we execute every thing that's being asked of us, will be ongoing the single biggest infrastructure project that this township pays for, on par with roads. So one of the ways that we're trying to, and thankfully, we've done a pretty good job with getting the roads into a pretty good spot now. There's always room for improvement. But when you talk about a $500,000 road program being replaced with a $500,000 MS4 program, that is a serious issue. So, this board is going to work through all the avenues we can to make sure that we reduce the impact on residents, that we do the right thing, that we don't increase taxes, that we find alternate terms of funding. Because it's a serious expense for a township our size. So just wanted to add that because I think as you go through our budget, and I encourage all of you to do it because it's how we're spending your money. is you'll see a reserve fund that is just for MS4. And that's that bank account where we're saying these projects are coming and this is where we're putting the money. And then whatever grants or funds that we receive through whatever programs we can get, we'll pull money out of that and use it for what I would classify as more productive uses for the township. But that's just one of five. So I think that's my soap. And then we'll get to talk about MS4 later in the meeting anyway. So I think that's all I have to say for the budget. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add.
I just like to keep pointing out to everybody that MS4, we're in two watersheds. So we are the lucky township that has MS4 on both sides of us. So it's even harder for us than some of the other townships, and everybody's dealing with the same issue, but we are hit doubly hard by that. So it's been a real trial.
Okay, so we've had our discussion. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Donna.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Melissa.
thank you, Melissa.
So I want to open up the discussion for the Route 896 PennDOT discussion. And Jeff, I assume Bruce will lead us through this?
Yes, Bruce is here and his associates, so I'm happy to let Bruce start it off.
Do they want to sit over here?
Bruce is on Zoom.
Okay.
And I think the plan, Dave, you told me got this wrong. We're going to spend some time letting Bruce take us through it, reviewing where we are, what the plans are in the future. And then we'll allow there to be questions and answers. I would imagine from the board and perhaps from the public.
Yeah. So that's right. So thank you for reminding me on that. So what we'll do, we have Bruce on the line. So if you don't know who Bruce Massey is, he's our representative. He is a representative from PennDOT, and he's going to be talking about the 896 roundabout and the PennDOT project in general. We're going to have questions. The board will have questions and comments, and we're going to open it up to the floor for public comment from residents. And I think we asked some of the residents who are going to be directly impacted by the construction of that roundabout to join us. So I would love to hear what everybody has to say, but particularly those whose property lines are along that roundabout. So with that, Bruce, I can hand the floor to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks very much for hosting us to be able to come back to you guys and talk through the changes that we have implemented into the traffic control plan. That's basically the various detour plans that will be occurring or proposed to be occurring during the multi-year construction of this project. In order to try to kind of keep this within a reasonable time frame of presentation, I'm going to be asking Tom Lindsay from KCI to show the plans and walk us through the various changes that we've made in direct response to the comments that we received the last time that we came out to talk to you guys, and had comments from New London Township, Franklin Township, London Britain Township, and the public. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to kind of walk us through what has changed since last we've discussed the traffic control plan with you folks. Tom?
Thanks, Bruce. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. I am going to share a screen. In the meantime, I will also introduce Brant Keeler from KCI on the project team is also on the call. Okay, so can you see a very zoomed out plan sheet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you make this screen bigger? Like close some of the side windows and yes, thank you.
If I can figure out how to do that.
I'm sorry. I was talking to Jeff.
Oh, okay. You're gonna take
Yeah.
everything. Okay, I was
We're just trying to
max
max. It's very small for
Sure.
those of us in the room.
Sure,
yeah.
and I'll zoom as much as I can
Yeah.
too, and stop me if if anybody's not following kind of where we
Mhm.
are in the world, I'll try to set that as we're showing up the plan sheets
Yeah.
here. So
Great.
as Bruce mentioned, my name's Tom Lindsay. I'm with KCI Technologies, and I'm the project manager on the design side for the 896 safety improvement project. We were out presenting to this group, as he said, it was actually back in March, and received comments on our detour routes for our different stages of construction. And we have made changes for those to resolve those comments. And I kind of wanted to step through the comments and the changes that were made in the latest plan, which is what you'll be seeing on the screen here is the same set that is linked to on the township's website that was provided. So that link is there. So first concern, so this is our overall, this is actually our truck detour map, which is why it's so zoomed out. The yellow highlighted line here, that is actually the length of the project. It's about 5 miles from end to end, right almost down to the Maryland border. One of the primary comments that we received the last time we were out was from New London Township with concern about using State Road as a truck detour. There will be a truck detour in place for the entire duration of the project. And there was concern about using the portion of State Road within New London Township to get trucks down to 472 and then on to 273 in Maryland. So as a result of that, we have actually modified the truck detour route as was requested. The truck detour will now be signed to pick up truck traffic at Route 1 and bring that truck traffic. I'm talking south to north at this point. It'll be the same in the reverse, or north to south. And truck traffic will then get on Route 1 all the way down to 272 down to hit 273 in Maryland, and then continue to tie back into 896 over in Delaware. Both directions, northbound and southbound, will be that same detour route. So we've eliminated State Road as a detour route, and the complications that would have come from, a lot of turns at that intersection.
Mhm.
The other thing that came up with the trucks was the number of trucks that are on 841. So again, and kind of crossing our project, not quite in the middle, is 841, and that's where the roundabout will be built. Both directions of both state routes there will be closed for construction of that roundabout. And there was some concern about the number of trucks on 841 and what roads that those trucks would use when that detour is in place. And State Road came up again. So we have also signed a truck detour now for 841. So that truck traffic will be picked up coming from the south, will be picked up at 273 down in Maryland and sent the same way as the 896 trucks to run back into, it actually ends up coming out at 796 up north of 1. So basically, we've changed the 896 truck detour to eliminate State Road, and we have added a truck detour for 841, both northbound and southbound, for the stage when the roundabout is being constructed, and those roads will be detoured. Now, to go along with that, there was a comment about a narrow bridge on 841 near Schoolhouse Road. So I'm going to zoom in with 896 again being the yellow highlight. On 841 to the north, there was a comment, I believe this was from a member of the public, that there's a narrow bridge where traffic also often has to stop if there's a truck coming in one direction. And while it's not in the scope of the project to modify this bridge, we do think that having having the truck detour for 841 will help conditions, at least during construction, to sign those trucks away from 841 in this area for the duration of construction.
Mhm. That area is also prone to accidents as well. And so it's, one of the, I think the biggest, there's a few concerns, but, and I'm sorry to derail the conversation, but
No.
you brought up a good point. With that road is the sight lines are bad. The bridge is very narrow. So I'm definitely concerned about road safety on 841, particularly in that area. It's not a very safe stretch of road.
Okay, thank you. The next set of comments came from Franklin Township. I'm going to change maps now. This is for this is for actually the same stage of construction where the roundabout is being constructed, and this is kind of the easiest way to show it. So on this plan, 896 runs top left to bottom right. 841 runs top right to bottom left. Previously in this stage, we were using Peacedale Road. We were showing Peacedale Road as a detour route to get traffic back to 896 once it had been detoured off of it, both for 896 southbound and 841 northbound. So we have removed Peacedale Road as a detour route. It will not be signed as a detour route anymore. So basically, the 841 northbound detour is now going to be signed starting down at Strickersville Road over to Flint Hill and then back to.
I don't know if that's any better. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Well, the concern about Peacedale being the school, I guess, was the main concern.
So yeah, that's true. The school intersection,
Yeah.
but Strickerville also has a problematic bridge. So I don't. I mean, I just want. I don't know if you when you look at these maps, are you doing this, making these decisions, looking at the maps, or are you kind of driving these roads and saying, hey, this makes sense for the truck traffic?
So this is not for truck traffic. This is for car traffic.
Okay. So
Yeah. Yep. Just FYI. So the truck detour is still in place through all of the other stages, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. But we do, we drive them, and unfortunately out here there aren't a lot of great detour routes. But we do believe this is better than Peacedale because of the conflicts with the school and the parking lot, the bus loading and unloading there.
Probably true.
So basically that's our 841 northbound detour in this stage has been changed. And then this is yet another map with the 841, 896 intersection being here in the shaded circle. The 896 southbound detour has been changed to follow with the northbound and be on the other side. So we're not using Peacedale Road at all for any detours. Then to go along with that, one of the other requests from Franklin Township.
Well, Gypsy Hill is another one of those problematic roads where it's we're trying to control we're trying to get traffic off of Gypsy Hill. There's a lot of speeding and it's a pretty dangerous road, but you'll get some comments, I'm sure, at the end about this.
Okay.
Yeah. And we understand there's not a lot of options, but let's see what we can do to make if we can avoid Gypsy Hill.
Understood.
Yeah.
Can I ask what the stars are, Tim? What the stars represent?
Right. So on this plan, we are showing, and I hate to zoom out again, but we're showing multiple detours here. One of them being for 896 southbound and the other being for 841 southbound. The stars are the 841 detour, while the triangles are the 896 detour. And it's just a way of trying to show those different routes on one plan. So to go along with the Peacedale comment, at the time there was also a question about implementing an always stop at the intersection of Peacedale and Walker Road. The township had asked if that was a possibility due to the increase in traffic there, and since we're no longer using Peacedale as a detour route, then that doesn't become a factor. There won't be an increase in traffic there based on assigned detour. So those were the changes that were made to the plan based on the comments that we got at the last presentation. The other thing I would want to point out is, and I don't recall if it was specific discussion in that meeting or at another time, we also had some questions about the rumble strips, the milled rumble strips that were planned for the edge lines, so the outside lanes of the roadway, and how those would affect buggy traffic. And as a result of that, and coordinating with PennDOT agreed to eliminate those those side rumble strips, except on the outsides of the horizontal curves. So still helping to mitigate the issues with running off the road on curves by having those rumble strips on just the outside of the curve. And there will still be rumble strips down the center line, but there will no longer be continuous rumble strips along the shoulders, as not to impact the buggy traffic as much as what happened with the rumble strips being there.
Okay, that's great. That was going to be one of my questions. So thank you for anticipating that.
Sure, sure.
So before we move on outside of the detours, I did have a question. So the truck traffic is the biggest concern that I think I have. And primarily it's because they don't necessarily follow detour signs. They will just use their GPS and they will weave their way through the fastest way they can find that's not blocked. And so the question would be, is there any space in the budget for this project to have police directed detours to help ensure that the trucks stay off some of these side roads and residential roads? And I think as an example, the Londonderry traffic circle, there was a lot of residents upset because their quiet little neighborhoods were now getting inundated with trucks rumbling through. Not so much the cars, but these trucks. And I mean, I think we all see that. I don't think trucks necessarily always follow detour signs. They might just look at their GPS. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are around how to enforce, if you will, the truck detours.
Am I correct in remembering that for each of the three townships here, it is a portion of the state police that enforces here? It's not local police?
It would be Southern Chester County State
Okay.
Police.
I
Avondale,
can.
yeah, Avondale back there. Yep.
Thank you. I can have a conversation back at the district to see if that is something that can be worked into the project, and I can get back to you on that.
And I think one of the things that to consider is it's not necessarily something you need 24 hours a day during the project. It's 20 hours a week or someplace where there's a police presence enough that folks think twice about trying to bring their rigs through these backcountry roads.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that if you could look into that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bruce, I have a question for you. I think
Mhm.
from me and possibly Mr. Porter from New London Township. I recall that you said that PennDOT was gonna do a video of the roads that you'll be detouring onto. Is that still the case?
Yes, there's a special
Yes.
provision in the contract documents that will do the video logging before and after the construction begins and ends. Yes, that is incorporated into the project.
And I'm not rushing you. When do you think you're going to be doing the first leg of that?
The current, hold on a second. The current let, I believe, on this contract, is June of 2025. So it is possible that in autumn would be the first leg of this. And definitely by the spring of 26, but we're trying to get some activity of construction into the 2025 construction season.
Okay, and I'm sure you're gonna say yes to this, but as soon as they're done, the townships will have access to those videos.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, our special provision for the contractor requires him to coordinate with you and then to provide the townships with a copy of the videos.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you mind if I ask Bruce a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Bruce, this is Guy Donatelli. I'm the solicitor of the township, and you and I have exchanged some materials.
Yes.
I had forwarded back on the 10th, I believe, pen and ink changes to the,
Oh,
and my concern with the maintenance agreement was that there were items that were contained in the agreement for improvements that you don't intend to make. So what I tried to do was to take those out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you had a chance to look at them. If not, you can get back to me. Well, it sounds like we have plenty of time to go through that. But there weren't many changes, and it was really more of an effort to edit the document more in line with what's actually going to be the condition on the ground.
No, I appreciate that. And the key factor in that, unfortunately, isn't my opinion on that. It's actually the Office of Chief Counsel, which is right out of the governor's office. They have their standards and they like to maintain their standards, but I am putting in a request for a custom agreement, and that will have your edits in there. And based on, hopefully we're lucky and they just say, okay, and then we're done. And then we can send it back to you guys to go through the process of approval. And if for whatever reason they have issues with some of your markups, then, we'll have a discussion concerning
All
that.
right. Well, that's very fair. We didn't make any changes to Exhibit B, which looks like gospel.
Okay, great. Awesome. That
And we,
would probably help. Yes.
okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Very much. Yep.
so do you have anything else that you plan on presenting tonight?
No, that was what we wanted to do to try to address the issues that we had before. And just as a reminder to the townships, in order for this to be approved and move through and get incorporated into the construction documents, we would actually need, and it could be something as simple as an email, but from London, Britain, and Franklin and New London townships, concurrence with you guys on this,
Mhm.
then also as a reminder of the process we have to do, because we've got multiple states involved in the detour. We'll have to go back to Maryland and go back to Delaware. Well, actually, Delaware's not really a change, but go back to Maryland with the changes that this revised plan incorporates, again, assuming you guys are okay with it, and then get official approval from them. That's what's going to take between now and being able for us to get out to the contractor community by June.
Okay.
So just as a reminder that that's the remaining parts of the process, assuming that the changes that we've made allow us to move forward with concurrence by the three townships.
Sure, I appreciate that. So I think we have some questions, and we'll have additional questions here. But I think before we as a board would agree to that is just come back to us and talk about some of the resolutions that you're thinking about around the detours, looking at Gypsy Hill Road, the narrow bridge on A41 near Schoolhouse, and potentially some police assisted truck detours. But I did one of the things that I wanted to discuss, and maybe it's not at this meeting, it's at another meeting, but it's another piece that we would need to agree to, is the roundabout itself. So, there's what is this thing going to look like? I have a couple of questions, and I know the board does too, about some of the physicality of the roundabout itself. So I don't know if there's any, if you and I don't, if you're not prepared to talk about that tonight, or if you don't have anything handy you can kind of grab and show us, I would just like to make a couple of comments around the roundabout, and then maybe we can open it up to the board for additional questions. So, we were talking about a couple of items. One is the material of construction in the center of the roundabout, whether or not there's going to be vegetation in the roundabout. Vegetation needs to be maintained versus some sort of concrete or brick center. which would require less maintenance. So that was the first question that I had, and the other one was about lighting of the roundabout. So we have homes that are very close to that road, and so I'm not familiar with what the PennDOT requirements are for lighting roundabouts, but I'm concerned with light pollution, particularly with the neighbors in that area. And so, what kind of considerations can we place to make sure that we don't have, a giant, spotlight in the middle of that
Mhm,
road, keeping the
mhm.
residents up? So I think those are a couple of the questions that I had.
Sidewalks.
If you want to talk, you want to ask?
Well, and there was something said about sidewalks. I don't know whether that's necessary there, but
Right. There are no sidewalks proposed in the area of the roundabout, and thereby there would be no township responsibility for those sidewalks because they wouldn't exist. With regard to the center, the current plans show it as grass. If you would want that paved, we could change that. That's not a problem.
So could it be like brick? Look, could it have that brick look? It's still concrete, but have not just concrete, but have more of a brick look
Like
to it. Is that
Yes, I don't believe that would be an issue. Tom, that would be something we can incorporate into the plans, correct?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So yeah, that if that would be the township's desire, we could certainly pursue that. And with
lighting?
regard, go ahead.
I think lighting, as Dave said, is a big one.
Yes. With regard to the lighting, a lighting study has been done. Tom, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you recall with regard to like side light pollution, were there like shields that were incorporated into the lighting design?
You can't put me on the spot 'cause I'm not a lighting designer, but I do believe that there was something we were specifying to try to decrease or limit the spillback behind the fixtures themselves. But I'd have to look back at that report.
Okay, so Tom and I are kind of recalling the same thing, that we were aware of that, and that the the point from a highway safety perspective was to have the light on the roundabout, and the point with regard to the residences was to not have the lighting other than in the roundabout. And Tom will double check, but I am almost positive that we incorporated that into um, the approach and treatment of those lighting fixtures, that they would not have the spillover. So in other words, it wouldn't just be like an exposed bulb burning down. There'd be like a shield in back of it to make sure that the lighting was toward the road and nowhere else.
I'm sorry, I need to ask this question, but can you accomplish somewhat the same thing with those reflectors they bolt in the road or on the road I've seen in other places instead of the lights?
I don't understand your question, Jeff.
In areas I've seen where they've had the reflectors on the road itself, so when the car's high beams hit it, you see the pattern and the way things are going. So could you?
As opposed to the overhead lighting,
Yes.
I don't know that that would be an option for this. Are there specific examples in Pennsylvania you're familiar with?
To be honest, I can't say in Pennsylvania, but
Mm.
I just wondered if it was something that you had looked at for this situation.
No, we went through what is the current lighting policy at PennDOT central office, and again, because of the concerns that have been voiced earlier concerning spillover lighting, as I mentioned, and Tom will check the report and verify that there would be some sort of shielding to make sure that the lighting that is needed by regulation is on the road and not beyond it.
Mhm.
Tom or Bruce, there's a brand new roundabout on Route 41 up near Route 10.
Okay.
Do you know if they used lighting Did they use lighting there or what Jeff's talking about? I forget.
I don't, but I do know the project manager on that, and I can ask him literally tomorrow.
Mhm. All right. Board, do we have any other questions or comments? Okay. So now I'd like to open it up to the floor for any public comment or any questions that you might have for PennDOT. Want to come up? Yeah. Zach, please do. We have we have a comment in the room here, and then we'll take some time for folks who are online.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening. My name is Zachary Elwin. I'm a resident of Franklin Township. I live on Gypsy Hill Road. I actually live at the very top of Gypsy Hill Road. And I understand that your choices of misdirect or direction of traffic are limited, and I'm not trying to be a NIMBY, but I don't know if you've considered the nature of that road. As it is, from where my house is, I'm fraught trying to get out of my own driveway because there's no sight line that lets me see in either direction. And adding a significant amount of traffic onto that road may cause some serious problems. The nature of the hill is such that it's blind from either side. So if you have one vehicle that is even a few inches over the center line, they can and will and have clipped cars coming the other direction. Plus, I mean, in the past, we've talked about speed mitigation, traffic calming, a couple other options. And I mean, so far, it was a victory to get the road striped, which was very helpful. But just in terms of the volume that I imagine you're talking about redirecting down Gypsy Hill Road, it's going to make life very difficult there's not many of us that live on Gypsy Hill Road, but for those of us that do, it's going to make life very difficult.
So just to add to what Zach is saying, I'm speaking for myself. I avoid going up and down Gypsy Hill Road, particularly going towards 896, because just taking that left is a little troubling. And so I go all the way down to where you're going to build the roundabout just to avoid Gypsy Hill and the traffic issues there. So just keep that in mind. If you have an opportunity to look at an option that's not Gypsy Hill, that would be appreciated.
One other thing that, I mean, and I think we've talked about this in the past in this room, and I don't know if the larger plan will mitigate some of this, but one of the things we've discussed to try to make the situation a little better would be having the exit from Gypsy Hill on 896 by Cornerstone Church. If you are meaning to turn left, which is south on 896, as it currently exists, there's a hill to the
right,
maybe 200 feet to the right. And as it stands today, I can be at a stop, see no traffic at all, go to move and get creamed by a car flying over that hill. So in the past, I think one discussion had been to make that and it would be inconvenient for me, frankly, but a no left turn from that intersection just to avoid the accidents, because we see, I don't know, I can think of at least 5 or 6 in the last 10 years that have been right there that are bad.
It's a rough one for sure. Thanks, Zach. We have one more question in the room.
Hi, I was just curious. There's a bunch of stakes going along Strickersville and Appleton that are staked in the ground along the road with pink stripes on the top. Does that have anything to do with this? They all appeared. Nobody knows what they are.
Actually, your township manager was doing his job quite well. He reached out to me last week, inquired in that, and I checked with our maintenance unit, and there's nothing from the PennDOT side that we know of that is activity there. I don't know. Well, it's a non-answer because I'm saying it's not us, but that doesn't answer the question of who it is.
What's going on? Well, it's the kind of stakes that we usually see when we start talking about property lines.
Mhm.
Yeah, like a private
But-
survey line.
But there's a
Yeah, but-
lot of them
It-
for a
Yeah, but-
long
it's on mo-
distance.
I'm sorry. It's on more than one property
Mhm.
owner.
Yeah.
It's multiple different property
Could be
owners.
Pico.
I'm
And
sorry.
is this, I'm
Pico?
sorry, is this on 896 or is it on Strickersville and on Appleton?
They're on Strickersville and Appleton, but they start right around 896.
Oh, okay.
And then
All
they
right,
go,
then-
so we weren't sure if that had something to do with the detours or.
Oh, I'm interested. What is it?
No, as far as I know, they're not related to our project.
Okay.
No,
Pico.
they are not related to this project, and I took the extra step to contact District 6 Maintenance to see if it had to do with any, like a small repair or a small maintenance type project, and they are unaware of any activity, the PennDOT activity out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other questions in the room? How about online? Do we have any questions for PennDOT online?
Yeah, Jerry Porter, New London Township Roadmaster. You mentioned earlier needing final approval from the townships for the truck detour. How soon do you need that, and how do we get it to you?
The earlier the better. Like I said, a simple email to me would be fine. There are certain townships that want to do an official letter, and that would be fine also. If it were a letter, it officially would be addressed to the district executive, who is Dean Abazi. Dean is spelled D-I-N, and Abazi is A-B-A-Z-I. And then you'd make it attention to me, Bruce Massey, consultant project manager.
Okay,
But
can
if, go ahead.
Could you send that all those address information to Jeff Eastburn,
Sure, can do that. Yep, absolutely.
and then Jeff will get it to me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other questions from folks online?
Yeah, I have one. This is Paul Overton. I was wondering if the intersection is currently lit with a street light.
The intersection at 841 and 896 is not, I believe it's not currently lit with a streetlight.
Thanks.
Bruce, I have a quick question.
Sure.
In previous presentations, we talked about the yellow section is the whole project, but that's going to be broken down into sections for timing. One of the detours was put on Hill Road and went to 841 in one of the sections. So there is a bridge at the very bottom of Flint Hill Road that is a one-lane bridge that actually makes a turn right at the bridge too. I just wanted to mention that we brought that up for consideration too. I don't know, I don't know where we go with it, but I just wanted to mention that, get that on record again.
So was
Okay.
Flint Hill at 841?
Flint Hill at Mercer Mill.
Oh,
So down, if you go down right from there, right there, yeah, right where your cursor was.
okay.
Yeah,
Kind of in
right,
this
right
area.
around there.
It'd
There's
be,
a
it'd
tiny
be,
one.
it'd be in our friends at London Breton on their side.
Okay.
Yes, this is Eileen Parrish with London Britain. That was one of the things the main thing I wanted to address tonight as far as the proposed detour. So I thank Jim for mentioning that. Right, that's just over the line from Franklin into London Britain there. And there's a curve and it's really a tiny one-lane bridge over the west branch of the White Clay. So I know it's, we're aware that it's part of the detour, but we are concerned. We are definitely concerned about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
And while I have a moment, I'm going to correct myself. I was corrected. Paul's question. There is an existing light at the intersection of 896 and 841. It's on a wooden utility pole at that intersection. One light fixture.
Is that sufficient for the roundabout?
That is not sufficient for a roundabout, no.
And Bruce and Tom, I believe there are one lane bridge signs at that bridge on Flint Hill, but I can't be sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the public? All right. So not hearing any. Before we move on, Tom and Bruce, we have some questions that I don't know if they've been answered yet. Can we have a discussion next month? Either we have an org meeting on the 6th or at our Board of Supervisors meeting on the 15th to just kind of wrap up this conversation with some of these loose ends. And I think maybe one other request would be, can we see some sort of mock-up on what you plan to do with the roundabout so we can kind of have a visual in our minds about what this thing's going to look like?
We can definitely do that. Considering we have a Christmas and New Year's coming up, I think it would probably be a bit of a challenge to make the 6th, but I could definitely see the meeting in the middle of the month as a good target.
15th would be ideal anyway. Yeah, 15th would be ideal anyway. So thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. And thank you for taking the time to come and speak with us and take our questions. This is certainly a major project here for the township, and it's going to have some wide-ranging impacts for the time to come. So thank you.
Actually, if I could interject, I'm looking at my calendar, and unfortunately, the 15th would not work. Do you have a workshop at the beginning of February?
In February, the 1st of February, we should have a meeting. Yep, February is the first Monday of the month is when we have our kind of workshop meetings.
Okay.
So that would be February
That's the
5th.
Friday, first Monday of the month.
February 5th.
Yep.
But I'm looking at a calendar, Jeff. I don't want to be contradictory, but the calendar I'm looking at, the first Monday of February is the 3rd.
I apologize. I didn't advance the year. You are correct, Mr.
Okay.
Massey.
That's okay. I know, Jeff, you keep me on my toes, and I appreciate that.
That was a test. Thank you for passing that test.
So we'll target that. Absolutely. Thanks.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you in February.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think next up is Ron Reagan to talk about the MS4 project discussion.
Sorry, unmuting here. Okay, I think when we got together about this the last time, it was back at the beginning of November, and at that point, we had a technical approval of our PRP TMDL plan from DEP, and we were authorized to begin the public comment period. So the board voted to approve that plan for purposes of putting it out for public comment. We put a notice in the paper on November 14th. So I think we're past the 30-day comment period. And Jeff, I talked to you earlier in the week. We had no comments. I assume we still have had no comments, or you would have called me probably. So where we're at tonight is that if it's okay with the board to proceed, we need to do a final approval of the plan without any comments. So basically, you're approving the same plan that you had approved for public comment for submission to DEP for them to then start the process of processing the permit. I just received a copy of the permit from the manager in London Grove Township. They were at this position about 2 months ago. So I think we can probably, if we do this tonight, I'll send it to DEP tomorrow. And then in about 2 months, thereabouts, we would receive the actual permit. And that starts that 5-year clock where you were talking earlier about needing to spend money on projects. That's the time frame that you need to spend the money to put these projects in place. And Dawn mentioned that we have an MS4 on both sides of the township. We have a small one on the Big Elk Creek side. We have identified a source for the load reduction on that side through a purchase of waste load reduction credits from PennDOT. I don't know, Guy, maybe you can jump in here if everything's in place, agreements are signed. I think we were getting very close. If not, if they're not done.
Our agreements and our signatures and the correct designation of the exhibit that they wanted changed is done and submitted. And I'm simply waiting for a response from, I guess it's OGC, Office of General Counsel needs to approve that agreement, similar to the agreement that we'll have approved with respect to the roundabout.
On the other side, in the White Clay Creek side, we have about a tenfold requirement for load reduction. The one on the PRP side in the Big Elk is a little over 10,000. We're up around 120,000 on the other side. And for that, we, Jeff, myself, and working with Pannoni, Pannoni doing most of the heavy lifting, putting the grant application together, but we submitted a grant that would cover, we think, a large percentage of the cost to put a stream restoration project in place that would provide all of that load reduction requirement. So some of that, the fear or anxiety over a high cost, should that grant come in, it will soften that blow considerably. But we're still looking, because that may not come forward, but we're looking for other opportunities. Another thing I think that is good news for Franklin is that Pannoni was just awarded to be township engineer in London Britton Township. So we're going to be having them working with, again, with our neighbors to the south, and I'll be sticking around with New London. So we will have a small team working together to try to push this forward for all the townships, and kind of keeping our ear to the ground as to what's out there. So tonight I would ask for a motion to approve that plan as being our final PRP TMDL plan, and authorize me to send it up to DEP. Should you approve it tonight, I sent Jeff a clean cover sheet that I think we should, if you do a motion to approve it, sign it, and put the day's date on that, and I can use that to send up with the new, with that document that we had out for public review.
Okay. Jim, I'm making some notes to write the motion. Would you like me to take a shot at it, or would you like to take a shot at it?
I can take a cursory shot. I think maybe I can just do it. I'd like to make a motion that the board approve a final MS4 TMDL plan as described by Ron Reagan for the board's approval tonight.
Okay.
Is that all I need?
You need a second.
Yeah. I mean, is that all I need for the motion?
And then, yeah. So, and Don's gonna be your second, and then we open it up for discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
Any discussion?
So do we have any additional discussion? Yeah. So, so for those who are haven't been following the process, we've been working on this PRP and TMDL plan for quite a while now. I mean, I think it's probably better part of this past year has been trying to iron this out before that. And so we came up with the plan that we felt made sense. We published the plan for public comment. And we're now at the point at the end of this process to approve the final plan and move forward. And so I think the nice thing that Ron had pointed out is this project that we're proposing can satisfy all of our requirements. And so it seems to be a pretty good plan to move forward. All right. So having made the motion and having a second, I guess, Jim, would you like to call the vote?
Yep, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the record show 5-0 approval. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to just share one kind of anecdotal kind of thing that happened today. Was I got an email from Ken Batten, the manager in London Grove, forwarded me a copy of the actual permit that was issued. And about 15 minutes later, I got another email from him with a bill for our first permit fee of $2,500. So they're not slow about getting, their bills out, but
Unbelievable.
I thought it was very, we got to pay $2,500 to spend a boatload of money to take waste load pollution out of, the stream. So it's, you got to, take some of that and just chuckle about it and move on, I guess, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not chuckling. I find it ridiculous. But I think the other part too, and I think you may be getting to it in a second, Ron. Not only do you have to do the projects, but you have annual reports that you have to do every year, which are also involved within inspection of your of certain, wastewater, or whatever you call these filtration beds. So it's the project is a cost, but also the regulatory requirements that are either their annual reports or permit fees can get into thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's frustrating for us, but the residents are the ones that pay this, and it's just we don't have a choice. It's just the way it works, and we just try to manage our budget the best we can so we can meet these fees. But it's your typical government with all the fees.
And Ron, I just want to say, I know for all of us, we want to thank you so much for stepping us up and helping us with this, because you've really been our leader on this, and we really needed you, and you've really stepped up and really made this happen. So we want to thank you.
I was glad to help, and I told Jeff I'm starting on that ramp off the highway of work to retirement, but I realized that this is something that it's I'm less than a mile from the township line, so I'm almost a citizen, and I did live in Franklin for about 15 years. So you're welcome.
Well,
I appreciate you.
I appreciate, I think we all appreciate you delaying your retirement to help us with MS4. It's been a nice process. So hopefully we can.
Can I ask a favor of you? I know you're working on the annual report. I would like to see it before it goes in. So if you could, I know it's going to take some time. You're still gathering information. You explain all that to us. But when you are ready and you have a draft, I would like to look at it before it goes.
Definitely. I'll get that back to Jeff and you, and you guys can distribute it however you want internally for everybody or anybody to review and go from there.
Hey, does anybody
All right.
know the annual compliance filings? Are they prepared by our township engineers, or is it something like that Jeff would do, or a combination of the two? I don't know yet.
It's on Mr. Reagan's broad shoulders.
It's
Okay.
pretty complex.
Yeah, that's what I was
They ask
thinking.
for a lot.
Well, it is pretty complex in that it's not, some of it we're relying on the Chester County Conservation District to do. For example, if it's a large enough project that requires an NPDES permit, then we need to have those, but we should be getting review documents and inspection documents from them so that we have those, and all we gotta do is tell DEP we've got them. The smaller projects, we need to do that, and typically that's done by your township engineer. So Pannoni should be reviewing stormwater plans, and every time I drive by the farmer down here at the end of Walnut Glen Road, I scratch my head and say, oh, Pannoni's looking to the stormwater there. They're putting a lot of new impervious in. So it's, Jeff's right. I'll be helping coordinate that and pull it together, but it'll be pulling pieces from a lot of different people.
Right. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you, Ron. So I think this is it for MS4. We can move on to our solicitor's report.
I'm going to sign off, David, unless you need me for something else then.
No, that's you can sign off.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone.
All right. Good night, all. Merry Christmas if I don't see everybody before then.
All right. So now we can move on to our solicitor's report, and we're going to start with our pro ordinance. Guy, I don't know if you have any preamble you'd like to discuss.
Sure, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm looking at page 109 of the packet, have it up so that I can read it. This is a modification of the pro ordinance, basically designed to do two or three things. One, make the ordinance clear that pro is a committee and not a board. Two, allowing appointment by the Board of Supervisors to appoint two members of the committee that are residents or whom are residents of other townships. And we added some language in a new paragraph 16-114G, which discusses staff applications for federal, state, and local grants and things of that nature. It's been advertised, and I've had it cleaned up and finalized in your packet. And if there are no surprises in it, I didn't make any other changes than the ones that were discussed in public. And I would recommend that you view the revised ordinance positively.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Guy. So as we do with all ordinances, we discuss the changes here in a meeting. I think we talked about it in two meetings. After that second meeting, we voted to advertise the ordinance publicly for review. So Jeff, did we receive any comments from the public after it was advertised?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think Stacy, you received any, did you? Okay, great.
Okay. All right. So let's then go to start the motion process, and we can open it up for discussion. So make a motion that the board approve ordinance 2024-02, which will amend the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Ordinance number 2020-02, adopted in May 5th, 2020. This amendment will change the name of the pro from board to committee and allow the Board of Supervisors to appoint no more than two, which would be a non-majority member of the seven-member committee, who are residents of townships whose municipal boundaries are contiguous with Franklin Township. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Don gotcha. We should have a buzzer system. Just we buzz in. Whoever gets first gets the second. Yeah. All right. So do we have any discussion? Are we having some issues with Zoom? Looks like I don't know if it's not responding. Jim, you can hear me, right? Thumbs up. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. We're just getting some warning signs on our thing that so Zoom might be issues. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Not hearing any. I will call a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate all the work that we did in putting this together. So I think next we have our solar ordinance.
That's correct. And for our solar ordinance, I'm going to go to page 113 of our packet. And this is something that's been in the works for quite a while. Just by way of some history, we submitted this to the Planning Commission of Chester County. They got back to us promptly with some changes. We then forwarded those changes and resubmitted the ordinance to our Planning Commission. And I actually called in to the Planning Commission meeting that discussed the changes and the wisdom, if you will, of some of the changes. We incorporated some of the suggestions that the Planning Commission was interested in seeing, and those changes were aligned to a certain extent with some of the concerns that the Planning Commission had with respect to the rapid nature of evolving solar technology. So we would be sure that the ordinance and certain enforcement and decommissioning efforts were properly drafted into the ordinance. If you look at I see a blue and red line, we made certain definitional changes that were recommended by the county so that those definitions are consistent with our general definitions in the ordinance. We made some changes regarding novel solar technology and changed the relief provisions in the agreement from an exception, which the Planning Commission of the county thought required ZHB involvement, which is something that was not desired by the Planning Commission, and we changed it to a waiver so that the ease of getting some relief will rest with the Board of Supervisors without the need to engage the ZHB and all the attendant costs.
Hey, Guy, I need to stop you right there. We completely lost Zoom for the last few minutes, so we missed everything you just said.
All right. Okay.
So, can you rewind?
Where did you lose? Did you get everything on the pro? You voted that up?
Yeah.
So it crashed right after we talked about the pro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solar ordinance.
Everyone on the call heard you though, Guy.
Did you hear me,
all
Jim?
right.
How was I doing? Okay.
Yeah, you did really well.
All right.
Let's see if we double down on it. Let's see.
All right. We'll try it again. My wife says I can never say the same thing twice, 2 times in a row. So we'll see. So so this is an ordinance that has been around for a while, and we sent it to the county planning commission, who got back to us fairly promptly with some changes, and we submitted those changes to our planning commission. And last week, Jeff invited me to participate in the planning commission meeting by phone, which I did. And we addressed some of the concerns that they had. The changes that we're recommending are changes that make definitional sections of the ordinance consistent with the way other terms are defined in the township ordinance book. We changed the manner in which de minimis relief could be requested. We had used the word exception for changes to the requirements of the ordinance, and folks thought that might mean that we needed to have ZHB involvement. So we changed the word exception to waivers, which maintains that ability to grant relief quicker and less expensively by our board, and we were consistent with that change. The county was concerned with the way we discussed removal of trees, and they recommended that we use the word woodland disturbance because it was consistent, again, with our township ordinance. We called it timber harvesting. And so we made that change. That made some sense. And they wanted the township to promote native vegetative cover. So we made some changes consistent with that. There was a change regarding making sure that the utility could accommodate any electricity that would be fed back into the grid. So we put in a provision, or we added a provision, which allowed for a request to the utility and a letter back from the utility approving that scheme. I'm just going through it relatively quickly. We made some changes with inspection reports because the county believed that might have been a little bit too often. None of these, by the way, that we've discussed at this point are particularly earth-shaking in my view, as far as administration of the ordinance. Decommissioning was redefined, or at least more carefully defined, to make it more certain when decommissioning had to occur. We required the applicant to identify certain aspects of the useful life of the system. Again, just making it a little bit more definite, a little bit more certain. The only change that we did not make, which the county was spent some time discussing, was the concept of where and in what zoning districts these arrays would be permitted. They recognize the wonderful soils that you have in your township and wondered whether placing these arrays in agricultural areas would somehow have a deleterious effect on the soils, and suggested we consider limiting the zoning districts in which these arrays could be placed. That would have been a major change to your ordinance. And the Planning Commission, from my view, had no appetite for that. I think it's discretionary on the part of the township. So that change was not made to the ordinance. After a conversation with the PC with respect to some enforcement issues, I think I would say they were generally pleased with the comments that the county made and were willing to incorporate the ones that I've just reviewed. So in a nutshell, I think it has gone through a second review, a second reading, if you will, and I think is in good enough shape to take the next step. Now, I've spoken to Jeff, and I think it should be my personal view would be to resubmit it to the county, just thanking them for their view, expressing the changes, giving them a blue line or a red line. And I suspect we'll get the same comment regarding zoning districts, which we have decided not to implement, and which probably would decide the same thing again. But that would be the course that I would take. I'm not asking the board to take any action on it tonight, other than to authorize me to forward it back to the County Planning Commission with the comments we've made.
So Guy, I do have some comments that I have three that I'd want to go through. Most of them are editorial. Just for clarity, so can we start? So I'm on page one. It's the A1, the second paragraph. It says, in the event that any condition in this section cannot be met, I would like to add the words, or the application contains a novel solar technology or requires some deemed minimum relief for the property. So I think you need to add something before the word contains. And I would suggest we add the word, or the application contains, and go from there. Is that something for you to consider? Because to me, it makes no sense right now.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm at section 2A1. Please give me that language again, and I'll write it down carefully, and then I'll gin up that change.
Okay, so like I said, there's going to be three. This is the first one. So in the event that any condition in this section cannot be met, comma, and these are the new words, or the application, and then you go on with what's there, contains a novel solar technology or requires some deemed minimum relief. And it goes on as is, okay? So just those three words, or the application.
All right, or the application, comma, will be right after the comma and before contains. Okay.
All right, so met's the comma, and then it's or the application contains. There's the commas before the word.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so then my next one, comments on page 5. And it's section 12B. I don't think this thing is aligned. So we talk about biannual inspection reports, right? That's the header. And then it says whenever a system is authorized for conditional use, an annual inspection report. So you're contradicting yourself. So I don't think you want the word annual. Maybe just delete annual and just say an inspection report.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I may not have conformed that paragraph to the change. I'll take a look at that.
Right, and then move on to, as you go down, I think it's the fifth line. And then it says, submitted to the township not later than 30 days following each anniversary of the date on which the town says, so then it sounds like you're back to annual again. So I just work it so that maybe you don't get into, and I don't, right now, it sounds like you're caught between annual and biannual. Maybe you want to say every second year anniversary. I don't know, just look at that to make sure you're aligned, because it's a biannual report. It's not something that's going to be done every year. Okay?
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and then my last section is decommissioning and financial security. So it's 16A. I didn't quite understand what we were trying to say. So we can go a couple of different ways. It says the record property owner at their expense is the entity responsible for complete decommissioning of the system within 6 months after the system ceases operating. That's fine. Or after notice of failed inspection or a violation of failure to cure, or is it due to a violation and failure to cure? I'm not understanding how failed inspection relates to violation and failure to cure.
I think I missed disjunctive or. I think there should be an or there.
Okay, so after notice of a failed inspection or violation and failure to cure.
Right.
So okay, so that's all. That's what I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. One more thing. Page 7. I mean, I am anal about this stuff. I think it's just because it's the way I was brought up. So it's section D, and you have the subheaders I, and III. When we reference the section, when we said as referenced in 16A, can we say as referenced in section 16A? Like,
Of course.
don't just put
Of
the
course we
letter.
can.
Yeah, say section. And I think that makes it clear so people know what you're talking about when you say 16A. All
Okay.
right, now I'm done.
Yeah. So
And here's an interesting tidbit. Those little I and then 2I and then 3I, they're called Romanettes. So you would say Romanet 1, Romanet 2, Romanet 3.
Well, we learn something new every day. Thanks.
Well, if I'm going to be doing your editing.
I was doing your editing.
Oh, all right.
So one of the questions that I have, this is maybe, I don't know, maybe it's probably a moot question, but since we addressed it, when Chester County came and said, hey, you guys should not allow solar farms on what is now farmland, that essentially eliminates the opportunity for solar panels at all in Franklin Township. So far we haven't had any interest. We're not looking at imminent solar panels or solar farms coming into the township. This is sort of preemptory. My question is, and this is where I should be stronger in zoning, but there are situations where a developer can come in, and if you don't have the appropriate zoning for what they want to do, they can sue and actually make a township find appropriate zoning or make appropriate zoning for this specific industry. And so if we were doing something like what Chester County is suggesting we're doing, which would functionally eliminate the opportunity, not to say that this is happening, but functionally eliminate the opportunity for someone to come in and put a solar panel because we would not have an appropriate place for it, would that open up the township for litigation to say, well, I want to build a solar panel and your entire township is essentially forbidding solar panels due to your restrictive zoning laws?
Yeah. So what happens is someone sees an area in a zoning ordinance which does not have a particular use, and they would submit a form ordinance of their own seeking to enable that use in the township, and then you would be litigating whether whether that applicant, at that point litigant, would be able to impress on the township its own ordinance. So it's always better to get out in front of it.
Great, thank you. And just to wrap up the conversation and talk about what the intention of this ordinance is there were a couple of major issues when you talk about new technology like solar panels, even though now they've been around for quite a while, but it's ever evolving. Is you try to write ordinances that protects the township, but you also don't want to write an ordinance that prevents new innovations to come in. And now we've got an ordinance that's based on 2024 technology and it's now 2034. So we put language into the ordinance to say, and actually Donna highlighted it, which was, if you're coming in and this ordinance doesn't encompass what you're trying to do, there's a waiver process to help the whatever the existing board at the time is to evaluate the technology and make sure that it fits into what we want to do in the township. The other major concern, so that's the concern on somebody who wants to come in and put a solar farm in Franklin Township. The major concern for the township is to protecting us when these solar panels eventually get decommissioned. And this is something that I learned with my time on the PC, and Jim and Donna has learned, is that it's incredibly expensive and problematic to decommission solar panels. It's considered toxic waste. There's only certain facilities in the country that will handle decommissioned solar panels. And so if the company that that comes into this township is, hopefully it's a reputable establishment and they have a plan, this ordinance makes sure that they have a plan and that there's money set aside to decommission these things, and we know where they're going in the 10 or 15 years down the road when the panels are either replaced or the solar farm is decommissioned. So, and I think the ordinance does that. We certainly worked on it for 5 years now, longer than that, maybe 6 that this ordinance has been around. So again, thank you to the Planning Commission and all of us who've worked on it over the years to get it right. So appreciate it, and thank you, Guy, for finalizing all of this.
Sure.
So next steps is we'll get the document, this red line document, finalized. We advertise it, and then we ratify it in January or February.
Well, I thought, Mr. Chairman, it would make some sense just to send it back to the county and
Right.
say, hey, we've
Okay.
made the
That's right.
lion, we've made the lion's share of your comments. Thank you for your input. We're going to be we're going to be advertising this and putting it on an agenda in due course. We wanted you to see where it turned out. I think that would be advisable.
Perfect. Yeah, understood. Thank you. All right. Well, next up is American Tower.
Right. This is one which we previewed earlier. We've actually been looking at it. Ms. Ortega and I have been looking at it for a period of time, and I've worked with a fellow by the name of Doug Lovejoy, and I went through the third amendment to the communication site lease agreement. Now, this is for a tower that is already there. It has been there and has gone through at least 2 other amendments to the site lease agreement. This is an extension of that site lease. I think my estimate was for 30 some odd years, 7 additional 5-year renewal terms. So this is going to be a cash generating proposition for the township. The township will receive I call it a signing bonus, one-time signing bonus of $10,000. There'll be annual payments. and monthly payments, and there has been put into the document a limited right of first refusal, which would allow the tower company to buy the site that it's on. Now that's problematic because township can only sell property if it follows a prescribed method under the second-class township code. I baked that in to the agreement. Their lawyer approved it. I also removed indemnity protections that the tenant wanted from us, the landlord, and they agreed to that change. I also included right to know exceptions to the confidentiality provisions of the lease, and sent all of that back to Mr. Lovejoy. He said his lawyers approved it. He sent me a clean copy. We both conformed the form of memorandum of lease that needs to be filed with the recorder of deeds to include the same protections that were included in the release. And we also changed, and he approved the resolution and consent affidavit to the extent that it's being given by the township and not the individual board members. So I'm happy with this. I think Ms. Ortega is. And I've drafted an amendment a motion for its approval. This is something that I think that is already budgeted for, as my recollection of our last meeting was that was the case. So I don't know that I need to do anything other than what was done to protect the township in those 3 or 4 legal areas.
Okay. Any questions or comment for Guy? Okay. All right, so I'll read the motion. I make a motion that the board accept the American Tower Agreement as presented by Township Solicitor Guy Donatelli. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Donna. All in favor, say aye.
Hey, Dave, in your motion, did you also include the resolution? I didn't recall you. I heard you say agreement, but there's also a resolution that goes along with that.
I don't have that in my, I'm gonna have to use your copy. Sorry, I have a different motion sheet in my, let's try again. I make a motion that the board approve the third amendment to the communication site lease agreement between the Township of Franklin as the landlord and SBC Tower Holdings LLC as the tenant, and the related resolution and consent form as recommended by the solicitor Guy Donatelli. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Donna. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, threw me for a loop.
I know, I'm on a different page, no, literally, different page. So then we have Lexington Point, our Lexington Point discussion. So Guy, do you want to lead us off on this conversation? Or is that Stan?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was looking to the camera to see if Guy was going to go ahead and start on that.
No, Stan's here.
Well, yeah, we do have representative from Keystone Custom Homes, Mickey Thompson, here tonight, and I understand that one of the requests that Keystone would like to make of the Board of Supervisors is to consider allowing for an early wastewater treatment plant startup with DEP. This is something that I think had been kind of informally discussed in a prior board meeting, but just to flesh it out, background a little bit more. There's a number of steps between here and placing the wastewater treatment plant online. One of those steps is to do a startup with DEP. It's basically running the plant through its paces and the drip systems through its paces. And that would be, from DEP's perspective, a final approval, assuming that everything were successful at doing that. The developer and their contractor has requested to do that now, even though all requirements to place it in service have not yet been satisfied, to give them an opportunity to fine tune any issues that may come up along the way. They're also recognizing that the plan is substantially complete and has been sitting dormant for approximately 6 months at this point in time. They'd like to try and dust the cobwebs off and hopefully get themselves in a better position when it can be fully placed in service, and this would give them an opportunity to do that. Your township solicitor has coordinated with Keystone on a draft amendment to the wastewater treatment plan agreement between the township and the developer that would provide for this, and I invite Guy to speak more fully on that. But I think it's a fairly simple document, and it simply allows for this testing, but it very clearly does not empower the developer to do anything beyond that, and it doesn't enable them to move forward with any other steps that are otherwise in the agreement than anything else that they need to address. Yeah.
All right, so if I remember correctly, and I think I do, the last meeting, we distinguished, well, first I want to distinguish between startup and test. So we did not talk about a startup. We talked about testing, pressure testing the facilities. So that was what was on the table. And during that conversation, I made it very clear as one of five, but I think the board supported me, that there's this issue with making sure the township residents, not the township, the Lexington Point residents agree that they are going to be on the hook to pay these fees, right? So we went through, and you gave us a nice table in our package that lists the folks that have signed disclosure agreements and those that haven't. Now, I understand that a certified letter has been sent to these folks, the folks that haven't signed the disclosure agreement, but signing a certified letter, signing a piece of paper that says, I accept a certified letter so I can read it, is not the same as signing a disclosure agreement. So I was very clear at the last meeting. I wanted something worked into the agreement, which is not in this current agreement, that talks about Lexington Point being on the hook to rectify whatever issues need to be rectified with the folks that have yet to sign this disclosure agreement. And that's not done. And so as one of five, first of all, I'm not talking about startup, I'm talking about testing. I'm talking about pressure testing. I will not support it. I was very clear what I was looking for, and I'm not seeing it. All right, so I fellow board members, you can comment, but
This is Riley Notzel. I'm counsel for Keystone. If I could just say a few words in response to your comment. I worked with your solicitor to develop the disclosure letter that went out, and our position is that it really is just a disclosure. There's nothing that requires them to sign off. It's in the chain of title, it's on the plans, it's in the HOA documents that they're going to be served by this system. So there's only so much we can do to notify people. They're not required to sign it to be obligated to pay the fees. I mean,
So
they're
that's-
automatically required to pay the fees.
So that's not, so remember at the last meeting, we talked about certain folks have rejected that and said that they're seeing a lawyer. So there is something that's not settled yet for several of those homeowners. So that needs to be fixed. That needs to be rectified. And if you're very confident that there's no issue, then put it in agreement that says we will not, Franklin Township will not accept, I think it's right of ownership. I don't know what the right terms are, Stan. Ownership or right to operation. I don't know, whatever the right words are, until these issues have been resolved. And if you feel they've been resolved, then great. Then I don't think you should have any problems putting it into the agreement. But
And
it's not in the agreement now.
And I understand. I think the goal would be to at least have approval to start testing and maybe agree that we will work out those issues.
No.
That documentation.
So this is the problem with Lexington Point. We do this all the time. You want something, which is reasonable to start. I think the testing is very reasonable. We ask you to do something and it doesn't get done. And then you come back and say, well, just agree with us to do this and we'll get back to the other stuff later. No, very clear, one of five, you guys can say whatever you want, but this needs to be rectified. Get it together, get it in the agreement, and then you'll have your test.
Can you speak a little bit to the reason you want actual sign-offs as opposed to people just being notified? Are you concerned about like because it's providing them a service?
So I think the impression that we have is you being Lexington Point are in an active dispute with the residents over the agreement on this sewer treatment plant. And so if we say, okay, we'll take ownership of this thing, we're now transferring that dispute from between you and the residents to the residents in Franklin Township. And so we want to make sure that that dispute is settled before we have to get involved, right? And so what'll end up happening is now it's going to be three parties involved in this dispute. If you have, I don't know how many residents there are, 7 or something, that are resisting this concept. And so we want to make sure that there's a resolution, that that the residents understand what the situation is, that whatever legal situation that they're undertaking is resolved before the township takes ownership and gets involved. Because we do not want to be part of this dispute.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, wait a second, just to be clear, I'm not asking you to resolve all that, have resolution with the residents before we'll agree to the test. I'm proposing that we will agree to the test as long as you put something in this agreement that states that you assume that response, that becomes part of the checklist. That becomes one more thing that you have to check off before we take over operational control. So I'm not saying you have to have everything settled now. I just want it in the contract, in this agreement, that you agree to do it before we get total operational control of the system. So you can have your test, just get it into the agreement.
And is that something that you're saying we can't address that in between this and the next, like, do we have to come back to you? Or can we just work with your solicitor to put that in and coordinate signature if that's the only thing? We just want to get this started as soon as possible and don't want to have to wait another month to come back in front of the board to go through this discussion again.
Yeah, so the board has to approve this, and the board has to approve this in a public meeting. That's just the way. That's just the
Could
way
it be
municipal.
approved with a condition, like you would with a plan?
No, it has to be in a public meeting. This is
No,
how
that's what I'm saying.
townships work.
Could you approve it
It's-
tonight with a condition that provision
No,
be added?
we're not approving anything until we see it in writing.
Right, so let's play this out, and we've talked to Guy about this. So we have the original homeowners who signed the disclosures, they signed an agreement.
Jeff, I can't hear what the speaker is saying.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mickey Thompson. All right, so I'm from Keystone. All right, and so I'm here. You know, Riley is our counsel, and he's been working with Guy, and we've been trying to coordinate getting through all the legals that were requested of us and the easements and whatnot. And you know, we had submitted that to council, and I think there might be some questions about that, but we went ahead and submitted those, and we might have to do some revisions on those based upon some comments from Stan. But we're certainly willing to do that. But we've fulfilled some obligations that were requested of us from the last meeting to get those and get them to Guy, and which we did.
The obligation that I asked you for.
Okay, well, I'm going to explain that. So we have on the agreements of sale from the original 7 landowners that there are disclosures that they signed that agreement to.
So I've not seen that. So Jeff has asked you multiple times to show us the disclosures.
Okay, we
don't have
have
for
shared
these.
with your council these documentation. I believe we shared that, Riley, with them with the disclosures
spreadsheet
on the agreement of sale.
So we have
Yes.
disclosures for the folks that have never built the houses yet, but they are folks that are going to build houses. So we've
Correct.
seen those.
Correct.
But you have, I believe, I can't get my numbers right. It might be 6 and maybe 5 folks that are actually
Yep.
living there now in a
Correct.
house. Those are the
So-
ones
so
that
when-
you don't have, that we have not seen.
Okay, because they signed an agreement of sale. Their signatures are on that agreement of sale. We obviously have issues with trying to disclose some documents that are between us and residents, but there are agreements of sale, which we'll be glad to share with council and certainly share with you in executive session. I'd prefer them not to be public documents and then get hit liability wise from neighbors. But they've,
If you're that confident, did you have it all figured out?
yeah,
Then put it in the contract, put it in this contract that says, as a condition for Franklin, one of the additional condition for Franklin Township to take over operational control of the wastewater treatment plant, we, Lexington Point, will resolve any outstanding issues regarding people paying for the fees for the wastewater treatment plant.
okay,
Put
so-
it in there. That's all you have to do.
Well, it's all you have to do, except for the fact that they don't sign it, then we'll never transition this wastewater treatment plant. And then, well, so when you raise taxes every year, do every resident sign off on that? Like, I mean, you are a public body, you have representation power.
They vote for us, right? The
Absolutely.
public votes for
Yep.
it, and we are able to, depending on what the tax, there are some taxes that we have to get a referendum and they have to vote on. So
Okay.
there are certain ones for the, John, you know better than I do, but there were certain taxes have to be done.
is, it's not a.
Well, it's not really, because I have documentation, and if they choose not to agree to pay,
So
then where does that leave us?
Can I interject? I apologize for this. We've moved really fast. I mean, we tried, Riley hustled, I hustled, Stan hustled. And I think that the test document is consistent with everything we've discussed. So Ms. D is saying,
No, it's not.
well,
It's not with what we talked about at the last meeting.
I think please let me finish. And I don't like to have these conversations in public necessarily, but I think what Ms. D is saying is we need some assurances, and I think I said this, that when the wastewater treatment plant is handed over, it's not a bag on fire. It is something where there is a recognition by the ratepayers, by the users of the facility, that they have payment obligations under that. We've got disclosure letters to that effect, and what I think Ms. D is saying is she would like some affirmation, affirmative affirmations, probably redundant, that the ratepayers, the users, know that that is their obligation and will be that obligation when the system is turned over. Have I articulated that correctly?
Correct. I don't want something that's on fire. I want this to be, this whole resolution with those folks that have not agreed to pay this fee, because they're pushing back, mostly the residents that are in houses now, that gets rectified. So if Mickey's confident that, yeah, they have to do it because we have legal documents to say they have to, well, then he should have no problems putting that assurance somewhere. If you don't want to put it in the document you created for the test, that's one thing, but put it somewhere. Get it in some document that says that these issues will be resolved before we take over operational control. That's what I asked for at the last meeting.
Okay.
I think from our perspective, it's just putting us in a difficult spot because the chain of title obligates these folks to do this. There's nothing, they don't have to sign to be obligated. They're automatically obligated. So it's a challenge to get them to sign something. It just kind of raises an alarm in their head of like, what am I signing? And then raises questions. We've done our best to do that, but I just wanted to kind of relay the challenge that it represents.
I don't want to be flippant here, but I'd rather have you the challenge than us have the challenge. I'd rather you have the ability to deal with it now. Have that conversation, do whatever you have to do, rectify it, and you have time to do it. We're not taking operational control of it tomorrow. There's some time. And then you get your test. It's not a startup, it's a test. Startup, there's certain things, Stan, that have to be done before a startup can be done. We're not doing the startup and test at the same time.
It's a matter of semantics. Yeah, I mean, they would be running through technically the procedures that we would call a startup. Yes, in DEP's presence, and the outcome of this is said if everything were successful, is DEP would then approve the treatment plan and drip to operations. However, the way the amendment to the agreement is written, that would not enable Keystone to move forward and place it in service. They still have to address all the other open requirements before they would take that additional step.
And according to Stan's letter that we're going on, we have a meeting on Friday to talk and to try to finalize the operational budget. So we can get that taken care of, which is one of the responsibilities. We have the easements, which I guess we have to modify, but we have submitted those. So if there's anything that need to be changed, I mean, they're prepared. We just have to maybe change an exhibit or something. So like we're approaching very closely to the point where after the test is run and DEP gives it the green light, we should have the budget in place. We should have all those other items done within 30 days, 45 days when the test will come back. So
There are, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but there is some additional site work, not directly on the treatment or disposal facilities, but some additional site work related to those facilities that needs to be addressed. And I know you guys are considering that, but I just wanted to, for the board's purposes, I just wanted to make clear it's not entirely a paper exercise.
Yeah, I do have a big favor to ask of you. I know you've provided us a table that lays out, this has to be done. Do you mind giving it to us every month? Just with because I see a lot of holes yet. But it may be because you just haven't filled, the version I have is old. But if you could do that, that would give us a better sense of transparency of how, the progress that's being made. I read your monthly updates, but it's almost like, okay, 2 steps forward, maybe 1 step back. This has been done, but maybe that has. So it's kind of hard sometimes for us to follow it. But if you use your table, that's a good table.
Rather than the somewhat lengthy and detailed review letters that cover it now, try and consolidate it in more of a table checklist form for hopefully
But then,
understanding.
to make me happy, which I know my husband will tell you is impossible, I don't know if he's listening. If you could have, I would like to get on that table, this issue that Lexington Point agrees to, and you lawyers have to agree what the right words are. Resolve any outstanding issues regarding fees with those 6 residents or 5 residents.
And not to belabor that point, but just to clarify the status of the disclosures and or notifications, however you want to phrase that. I think, Mickey, you had shared a draft of a projected build out schedule earlier, just an hour or so before this meeting. And based upon that, it looks like you have some buyers lined up for which no disclosure information has yet been provided to the township. So those are just some additional gaps that I think we need to get filled in. Yeah.
like we have certified mails for this disclosure that is going out. So we're waiting for the receipts to come back to us at this point, but we've sent out and we've had buyers drop out because of our inability to get permits so we can start construction. So there might be some fungibility with that list. That was a draft list I had operations person come up with.
Yeah, and perhaps if you could, I know we got that list of all the certified mail receipts, but a lot of those were just names and mailing addresses that we couldn't tie to any particular property at Lexington Point.
But the other point is that signing a piece of paper that says I'm accepting this letter is not the same as saying I agree to what's in the letter, right? Because I signed it before I read the letter.
Sure.
So I don't want to confuse the two.
Well, it was not for them to agree that they are to pay this. This was for us to show that we've sent them notification, which was part of our discussion that we had amongst the lawyers to say, this is part of what we need to get to is we provided them notification. That's not good enough for me. So that may be good enough for God. It's not good enough for me. I wanted what you had with the other, you had folks sign a disclosure statement. They actually signed it. You wrote the words and said, this is what's happening. And you have quite a few, right? I think at least half of them you have that, where it's a piece of paper that they signed. That's what I want. But even beyond that, that's not important. What's important is that you agree, however you want to do it, to say you're going to rectify this issue, whatever you have to do to resolve any outstanding issues regarding fees, that will be resolved before we take operational ownership. So however you decide to do it, whether you have a disclosure agreement or whether you talk, I don't care. That's really up to you. So I'm not asking you, I'm not demanding disclosure statements from everybody. That's not what I'm asking. I just want you to agree that this will be resolved before we take operational control, whatever that looks like. Okay. We have something else to talk about. I don't know when you want to, but there's a couple here that want to start building. I think that's an interesting conversation we want to talk about, right? I don't know when we talk about that.
I
don't know.
Yeah.
And you may want to say
Yeah, no, and I'm looking for Solicitor Donatelli's input. I had spoken to Guy briefly about this, and there's certainly a lot of balls in the air with Lexington Point, some of them legal, and I believe it was Guy's recommendation that the board, of course, listen to those future residents' concerns tonight, but simply listen and digest and perhaps follow up at a later date.
Yeah, I think I may have even pushed this out in an email in late afternoon. I think we should be in a listening mode. There's a lot going on, and I will only go this far. I think we need to be cautious that we don't answer questions where we don't have all of the information, because we don't want to give any of our constituents information which isn't accurate and vetted. So I would recommend allowing our constituents to speak to their heart's content. And I would caution against answering questions where we're making predictions or having discussions about what may or may not happen in the future, because at this point, I don't think it's set in concrete to the extent that I would be confident with endorsing those sorts of responses. And I told that to Stan when we spoke around 6 o'clock this evening.
Great, thank you, Guy. So if you have a comment, just introduce yourself and whether you're a resident or a non-resident taxpayer in the township.
Hey, my name is Praveen. I'll be a future resident of this township. So we are moving from Delaware. Just to be like, we bought lot 34, which is waiting for approval like an year before. Like it's been a year. So we are waiting for the approval to build it. But like we hear this monthly meetings, and like, currently I know the plant has to start and then has to go to DEP approval. Is it like our permits will happen after DEP approval? Is it something, can we know? Because like initially it was like September, it was moved to October, November, and then this is like, we were told December is where we're gonna land our like at least the permits. Now we are already in December. I know they're like, I hear that there are things that needs to be done by Keystone, but like what would be the proposal? Like do the permits would happen after DEP approval, or like is it something township can consider simultaneously, like, while the testing is going on? Right, like why? Because like, let's say if after a month, I'm sorry. Yeah, after a month or two, let's say if DEP approval starts and then the testing would happen for 2 to 3 months, and then happy path, no issues, then the permits would happen like another 5 months. At least we are looking for 9 months from now, which would put us like almost like 2 years to get our house. But like, is it something a DEP approval and testing, at least the testing part, and then the building part can happen simultaneously? Why? Because like last summer, there were like 3 were permitted, 3 builds approved. They started in August, and then I think somewhere in the October last week, the house sewer lines were connected to the plant, which took them 3 months from the start of the construction. I was thinking, like, from what I hear, it's the same time that the DEP testing would go on. Like if we do parallel by, like at least we'll get like 3 months ahead. In case if something is not working, anyhow, like we were assuming that township has the occupancy certificate, which can be issued only when all these DP approval and then everything is built as per. But like we are requesting if they can happen parallel, at least it would be like 3 to 4 months ahead of, like, rather than sequential, one after the other. Right. I don't.
Let me just understand the question.
Yes.
You're saying that. Sorry, so let me see if I understand the question, and I don't know if I have an answer for you. The question is that, and I understand the original agreement is that there are no more houses being built.
Yeah, there's a limit to the number of houses that can be built based on the ability to pump and haul. So
Right.
before you can build any more houses, you
Right.
have to be able to move into the
That's right.
facility.
And the current agreement prevents you from building your house because Lexington Point has an agreement with the township that no more buildings can be built until they satisfy their requirements. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with it. Like we are at like milestone 5. Until hauling is happening, there are no more than 15 houses. The 15
Yes.
houses, we are at that limit.
Yeah.
But like since we are approaching milestone 6, like where the plant starts operation, and then like for the 16 to 19, the next set of houses, do we need to wait until all this like plant is like tested completely and then start the building, right? Like the plant testing would happen for 3 months and then start would be like another 5 months or so, like 9 months, right? What I was like, maybe like
So this is, we should push this to Guy to answer for you, but Guy, are you still on? Did we lose Guy?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
So did you understand the nature of
Yes,
Praveen's question?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I think that's a I mean, I don't want to give the gentleman legal advice, but I think that's a discussion he needs to have with the seller. I mean, those are the types of conversations that if I'm involved in a transaction, I mean, he should be discussing that, his family should be discussing that with us, asking those questions of the seller.
I'm with you, Gary. Like whenever we approach the Keystone for like the only response that we got from last 6 months was like your permits were pending with the township. We applied it with the township, right? Like that's the same response that we get, other than saying like we are working on some things.
So the current agreement, as it's written, and Guy, correct me if I'm misstating this, with Lexington Point, is they are limited with the amount of houses that they can construct, based on their pump and haul agreements and getting that's the agreement. That's the and so they know this. This has been the agreement for 25 years.
Yeah.
And so I understand your frustration, but to Guy's point, it's really a discussion that you need to have between you and Lexington Point, because we're not going to adjust our agreement. At least we should. I don't believe we're in a position to adjust our agreement is probably the right way to say it.
So like, is it confirming that we need to wait until testing to build it? Is that how the agreement was? Because like when I look
I
at
have
my
to remember. I don't remember on the top
Well,
of my head.
let me say this, Dave. I think he's been listening to the conversation regarding testing.
Yes.
And nowhere. I think I'm remembering this correctly. Nowhere in the agreement is there a paragraph that talks about testing. There's a provision that talks about startup and then milestones that need to be made up through to startup and thereafter. But testing, again, I've listened carefully over the last 3 or 4 meetings. Testing was an accommodation that Keystone, and it was a reasonable request for Keystone to make, that they be permitted to kick the tires, so to speak, to make sure that everything looked good. But that doesn't have any effect. And my advice would be that would have no effect on how fast, if at all, the approvals and deadlines and scheduling would advance. I think I'm right on that. Please feel free to disagree.
Yeah, maybe Stan, I don't have in front of me, I should have it. What is the agreement? The agreement is you can't give have a person in building number 16 and still be on pump and haul. You have to be in a situation where the wastewater treatment plant is up and operating. But did we say you cannot start to build house number 16 without anybody in it? Do we prohibit the building of house number 16 until the wastewater treatment plant? I don't recollect the words. So
It does, yes.
So they can't even build it.
It prohibits issuance of the building permit for house number 16 until the plant is placed in service, and along with that, the pump and haul being decommissioned.
So that is the agreement. Those are the words, and that would have to be changed.
Correct.
Okay. For us. And I think what you're asking is that we do change it. So that would be that the house could be to be built, nobody would occupy, but the house would be built. And so therefore the difference in time between when the house is finished and you can actually get in there will be much less than if you don't start building the house until the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, like,
Right.
yes, because like, even if it is built, no one is there, it just like stands out until DEP is testing and approval is all finished, then it's right away instead of starting the building at that point.
It saves you several months, right?
Yeah, several months, to
Right.
be honest, yes.
But by what you're saying, Guy, and what Stan's saying, that's not the current agreement, and that agreement would have to be changed.
Yeah, and that's not the, I would say this, there's a commercial aspect to that I'm sure Keystone would want to weigh in on. Does it make sense? Because they can't close, they can build it, and then how long are they going to carry the house? You know, to me, if I put my, builder's hat on, I want a time, and here's a gentleman can answer that question. I think, I don't know that helps anyone, quite frankly, but again, I'm projecting, I'm doing what I advise not to do. I'm imagining what might happen in 6 months.
Well, the hope that we have is that this station will be operational. We'll have done all of the items which we need to do in order for it to be operational. So again, there's going to be a time where it operates, it is able to accept the sewerage that is not being dedicated to the township at that point, right? So there's a period of time and that happens. We're hoping, and I think we're on administrative issues right now. It's not like we have to build the pump station. It's already there. We just have administrative issues, and I'm hopeful that we can get through those things relatively soon.
So Mickey, this is one I'm actually on your side, believe it or not. You would want this, right? You would be in favor of this.
It's going to take several months for these homes to be built. They're very large homes. There are a lot of options, a lot of things that we need to do. And you have the ultimate control of not issuing a certificate of occupancy if this isn't done at that time. We're willing to take that risk as a developer so we can start getting these houses done. These aren't prefab houses that we're just slapping up there. I mean, we're building these things. It takes time. So that's what, I appreciate you showing up tonight. I didn't ask him to be here, so it's not a plan, please. But we have a conversation and it's going to take us several months. So I understand it's a very hot topic here, and we're not trying to push you to wanting to throw us out of the room here. But
taking the risk.
We're taking the risk. Absolutely.
So I know, Guy, you don't want us to, I can't, I felt sorry for you. You can't solve problems, but how do we have this conversation? Yeah, how do we do this? Do we executive session?
So can we have a conversation, Guy, about, because this is gonna, so I have a lot of questions about how to move forward with this, and I don't know if right now is the appropriate time to discuss this, Guy. So I wonder is this an appropriate conversation to have either in an executive session to talk about the contract as a whole? Because I think that's what we're if we make this decision, it's going to affect the whole agreement, right? So if we say we're going to let one house in, it's going to be all of them, right? We're going to say we're waiving this for all future construction, and we're going to end up getting the full 38 houses. 38 houses. And so I don't want to say, oh, here's the answer tonight before we actually have a conversation on how to negotiate this.
May I make a
agreement.
suggestion that would perhaps be helpful to the board and to Keystone to just inform the background a little bit? Donna, you had requested to try and consolidate all the steps that are out there on the table, so it's a little bit easier to track. I can certainly do that, and I can have that done tomorrow. And Mickey, if I know we've got a call scheduled on Friday to discuss the O&M budget, perhaps that we could also use that as an opportunity to go through that and clearly discuss everything that is on all the steps that are on your plate.
Yeah.
But having that, I guess my thought is having that information, hopefully in a more understandable form for the board, might help you consider the current requirements to get from here to there that may impact the timing that we're talking about.
I think, David, you make a really good point. It's not as much as we want to make you whole. It's not just you. If we say yes, it's for we have to be ready for that. And once again, I'm not saying this isn't a good idea. I actually think it makes sense, but I'm only one of five. So sometimes I'm with you, sometimes I'm not. So, Guy, how can what do we do here? So you guys are going to meet, you're going to talk. Guy, is this a public meeting? Is this a exec session? How do we have the
I don't think
conversation?
I don't think it can be an executive session because it doesn't fit into one of the seven,
Okay.
Perfect.
5 exceptions. I mean, you'll be addressing, you won't be addressing a confidential matter. It's, there's no litigation. There's not going to be any litigation. So it's not like we're doing it to head that off. So, maybe you appoint two board members and some staff members and consultants to sit down with Mickey or with residents to discuss the exact scope of the ask. You would be, in my view, and this is the last I'll say on it, fundamentally altering the
100%.
entire trajectory of this development, which is not progressing in an orderly way. I'm not saying it's disorderly, but it's not progressing in an orderly way. You would be heaping on an accelerated and extra contractual obligations and functions on nothing. And then what would happen is the houses will go up, and then someone will say, "Well, why don't you let me move in?" And you just will get drawn into it.
Yeah,
And
so
I'm
let's
saying we
go.
could-
I think, yeah, let me just say, so I think from this, just to kind of bookend this conversation, we obviously need to have another discussion here. And we have an opportunity perhaps at our January 6th meeting. Or we could have it at the next board meeting, or we assign a couple of us to discuss.
I would love.
But I think that the point here is, as Guy pointed out, is it's problematic. It's not simply, hey, there's this, nice person comes in, wants some help, which totally understood.
Yeah.
There's some broader implications for the township that we need to consider, and this contract has been in effect for quite a while now. There's reasons it was written the way it was, and it's been protecting the township for 25 years. And I don't know if accelerating it, as Guy put it, is the right thing to do. So let's have a deeper conversation, because there is a lot to go through and parse.
Can I have one question? See, I'm not asking entire, break the agreement. As per the agreement, there is a next milestone is 7. We are at 6, constructed 15 houses. Next milestone is 7, which permits for 4 houses. We are requesting, mine is one among those 4. Mine visit the township, at least for those 4. By this time, the 4 are done, all things will be solved, hopefully. Then it's no obligation for 20 to 38. That's what the agreement says. Milestone 8 is from 20 to 38. Milestone 7 is from next 4 houses, 16 to 19. My request is at least those 4.
Yeah, I don't. So we'll have to have that conversation, but I don't know if we can, because the rationale for it to happen for you is to say, we're gonna build the houses and they're gonna, and assuming everything goes well, great, you get in and everything happens fast. But assuming things don't go well, Lexington Point takes the hit and it could be sitting empty for a while. And the rationale to do it for you would be the same rationale for house number 35 or house number 34, because it's the same thing. Why can't you build the house while you're getting the rest of it together? So we just need, I think if you don't, I mean, thank you. I think it's a very thoughtful idea and I'm glad you brought it to us, but if you don't mind, when are you guys meeting? I could join you, and then
We currently have I think just a half-hour Teams meeting scheduled for Friday to go over some of the details of the O&M budget. I'm not sure that time.
Maybe it's another meeting. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to need more time to get into
Whenever it's convenient for anyone to meet, I'll adjust my schedule. You're probably my highest priority for my company.
All right. Yeah. Well, we need Stan and we need Guy there. And David, you think you can join us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it would be me if the board's okay. So is that right? Jim, is that okay with you if it's David and I?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. And
I
then,
apologize. I don't mean to interject. I wanted to wait my turn. My name's Ashley Rohrbach. We are a future resident of Lexington Point as well.
Okay.
And my only questions were, I guess along the same vein, and I appreciate what Guy said, you know, there's questions that maybe we need to follow up with the seller on, but I think that the rhythm of the information that's been shared with us, likewise, has been like essentially copy and paste, and it has been very vague and open-ended from our neighborhood representative that we get information from. So just from, and I personally, myself, I work in construction. I have a construction background. Is there a place that I can find, even online on the Franklin Township website or elsewhere or through Keystone, what are the steps with DEP? We've been listening in for a few hours, or a couple hours. What are the steps for approval of the facility by DEP? Is there a timeline? Is there like a typical like 3-month turnaround with DEP? Is there?
Ms. Rohrbach, do you have a copy of the underlying agreement?
Which underlying agreement?
With respect to the wastewater treatment plant, because it has those sort of milestones in it.
I don't think that's been provided to us, no.
All right,
But the
we can get that
the
to you.
sign off has been provided to us about the $200+ fee per month.
So nothing, I don't think anything about that agreement is privileged. And I heard Stan weigh in. We can get a copy of that to you, or put it, whatever Jeff thinks, put it up on the website so you can, so everyone can access it.
Mickey said he would get it to her.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
It might be worthwhile just having it up somewhere for resident, like Lexington Point residents to view, if that's a concern for residents. Makes sense to me.
I mean, even with the like milestones, this is the first time that I'm even hearing anything about milestones with like the next set of houses, which,
Right.
you know, begs the question for me to get back to our neighborhood rep. What house number are we? Because we signed our agreement in January. We were told at that time we'd likely move in this upcoming January. I'm not there in person right now because I'm 9 months pregnant, and our house, we have no updates. So
Yeah, well,
I didn't want to interject and
No, I think
overstep on
that's-
anybody, but I
yeah.
wanted to find a good time to.
You're being very appropriate. We'll get that done. That's a good starting point, because you will see the cadence and how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe Stan and I can work on backfilling you with some information out of our files, which is not not normally distributed, but not confidential, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that you can understand your sort of place in the universe.
Place. Yeah, that would be phenomenal. We would really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think if I may, I can in fairly short order summarize the scope of what's controlling these requirements. Certainly the agreement that was just discussed is a major factor. There's also a land development plan that was approved by the township 20 years ago, give or take. And there's certain requirements on that land development plan that relate to the treatment and disposal facilities. They're not enumerated as an item in the agreement. However, as a function of that plan approval, there's still things that need to be addressed. There are also some technical items, punch list items. They're minor compared to everything else, and the contractor's been doing a great job out there. Those aren't going to be, in my opinion, a deciding factor in timing for anything, but those are a few things that are still out there.
So we hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for giving us time.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
My name is Raju. Even I am also having the same problem. I am also sailing in the same boat, waiting for a house to be constructed for 1 year. So even I, as Praveen said, we're waiting for the last 1 year to get occupied, but we have not got the approvals yet. And then since we are not getting approvals, the plant has not been started yet. So we are all in the same boat, waiting for the approvals. So there are like few other folks having the same issue, waiting for years to get approvals.
Mhm. All right. Thank you. Appreciate the comments. All right. So is this, I think, does that wrap up our Lexington Point conversation? All right. Betsy.
It's my turn.
Thank
And I'm
you.
not sure. Thank you. Nori Heckroth, plan withdrawal letter, withdraw. I read the proposed motion. I make a motion that the board accept the November 27th, 2024 letter from Nori Heckroth stating that he is withdrawing all subdivision plans submitted between 5/20/2020 and 11/27/24 related to the Nori Heckroth Development LLC, also known as Franklin Automotive, located at 1691 New London Road, Landenberg, PA 19350. Tax parcel number 72,580.4.
I'll second
I'll second it. Okay.
Jim.
You finally won one.
Do we have any discussion on this?
It's been a long time.
So yeah, so this was something. So this gentleman wanted to build a automotive repair shop on the property, and he put his subdivision plans in. And so what happens is if your plans get delayed, you just have to come to the board to ask for an extension. And so we've been extending his plans until he was ready to start the business, and he's decided not to start the business. So he's not asking for an extension, he's withdrawing the subdivision plan. So that's the story.
Great, so there's no further discussion? So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay, so it is, motion carries 5-0.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing on the docket is that Pennsylvania One Call had written us a letter to Dave and to Jeff and asked us to support, I guess do you know more about that? Just supporting a.
It's just supporting the 811 call system.
Right.
So that's basically what it is. That the board supports it, and
Right.
we encourage our residents to make the call before digging.
Right. So.
Mom and apple pie.
Yeah, so I think we can do that. I make a motion that the board approve the resolution 2024-11, a resolution stating Franklin Township will support the Pennsylvania Underground Utility Line Protection Law and proclaim April 2025 as Pennsylvania Safe Digging Month.
I'll second that.
Dave, thank you, Dave. Any discussion?
Just real quick, this is just, I always have to say something. Just so folks know what 811 is. If you're gonna go dig, may do some major digging in your backyard and there's power lines nearby, call 811 and say that you're gonna do it. And they'll say, yeah, safe, there's no power lines underneath.
Well,
Worry
and
about the dig.
they'll come out and mark it if there are.
Yes.
So,
So please, if you're gonna do any major digging on your property, call 811 and make sure that those lines get marked. That's it.
Dave, could be anything. It could be a gas line too.
Could be a gas line, could be, yes.
Yeah, so it's very important. So we do like it. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so now we are at committees and reports. Jim, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, Mark Sawada is here for the Franklin Sportsman's Association report.
Sure.
Mark.
Not turning on?
Uh-oh.
Okay, deer season's closed currently. It closed December 15th, and it will reopen the day after Christmas. We removed the barriers on Bamshire. There were some crossover trails that were closed November 1st through December 14th. Those barriers have been removed, so it's all open again. The harvest report, we have 7 deer, 4 antlerless, 3 antlered. 1 doe is harvested from Bamshire, 3 antlerless, and 3 antlered from Franklin. So we're moving along. Community service, as of December 9th, we're at 141 hours. So that's pretty much it.
All right.
No incidents that I know of. It's been going pretty smooth.
Great.
Harvesting.
Yeah, there's this last month, we usually do okay. Yeah, so we usually end up with about 12, 13, 14 is usually our average.
Well, colder's better, right?
It's nicer for hunting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right, Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark.
I have a report. Is Paul Agassi on here?
He is
Can't
not
see.
on tonight, so
Okay.
he's just submitting his report as written.
Got it.
If the board has any questions, he's happy to take your emails.
All right, Dawn.
Okay, Friends of Crescent Park, the garden is quiet, as you can imagine, but Greg Sachs is coming back for a week for Christmas vacation with his family. So he's gonna come out and check out the garden. For anybody who doesn't know, he's the one that initially got the garden started. So we will be happy to see him and let him see the progress in the garden.
First pro chair.
And yeah, he was the
pro chair.
first pro chair. And with that said, I wanted to say a little thing today, this afternoon happened just the way I think it should. I looked on the Facebook page from the garden page, and one of the ladies said, "There's a tree down on the head of the trail." And I said, "Well, Healing Garden, what trail?" And she said, "It's the trail right across the parking lot by the dumpsters, right down in there." So I said, "Oh, thank you. We have a meeting tonight. I'll tell everybody." And then 2 minutes later, Kyle gets on from the pro committee and says, "It's already been reported and taken care of." 2 minutes later, I get an email from Bob Magnus saying the pro is already taking care of it.
Beautiful.
I said,
Good job.
that is the way it's supposed to work.
Perfect. Love it.
So that was teamwork.
Perfect. Love to hear it. All right. And now the Park Recreation and Open Space Board report.
Sorry, trying to unmute. In light of the hour and everything else, fortunately, I don't have much of an update. First, Bob Magnus was able to obtain a beautiful sign language sign for the tot lot at Crossan Park. Those of you who are in person at the meeting tonight can see it. It's in the office right next to you. One side has ASL alphabet on it, and the other side has some common greetings and phrases. So if in the event there are any hearing impaired individuals there, they can communicate with other kids, or other kids can communicate with them. So that's been a great project for him to have worked on, and we're appreciative of all of his work. Our January, well, I'll say that last. At our last meeting, we came up with a lot of new projects that we want to put forth for January or for 2025. And we will work more on that list in January at our January meeting. And then we will get that information to Board of Supervisors. And they've asked that we, moving forward, have a little more of a timeline, project management style to our projects, and we will start implementing that. I have moved into the position of chair, given a recent vacancy, and Bob Magnus will continue to serve as vice chair with me. And our January meeting will be on January the 8th.
Right.
That's all we've got.
Is it January 9th? 8th. Oh,
All right.
Wednesday.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Heather, and thank you for taking on the responsibility of chair. I appreciate your commitment.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. So with that, Anything else on park? So anything else on the pro before we move on? Okay, not hearing that. I will open the floor to public comment. The public comment can include any comments on anything attendees may want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer in the township. Hey, can we,
Yeah, you might have to stand.
John, maybe, I think, Antia, do you want us to go first? Okay.
My name's John Auerbach. I'm a Franklin Township resident for 46 years and a former supervisor. The information I want to give you is really doesn't affect the township government directly, but it affects everybody in the township. The county commissioners, of which there are 3, are proposing to raise the real estate tax in the county from 4.551 to, from 4.369 to 451. It's a, wrong number. Sorry, they're proposing to raise the real estate tax 13.29%, which is an enormous increase. 2 of the commissioners support it. 1 does not. He's recommended they reduce expenditures 9% to avoid it. Just another point of context, in 2021, they raised the real estate tax 4.2%. So they've made a couple of major moves. Let's see, quick comment on the 841 Schoolhouse Road intersection and a narrow bridge. It's extra bad because it's at the bottom of the hill and both sides of the road descend into it. So the traffic reaches maximum speed at the point of conflict. So it's one that I heard PennDOT was going to improve, but not lately. Let's see. There was some discussion about the lighting around the roundabout, and I believe we have a lighting ordinance which reduces the vertical scatter with a 30% shade. So you might ask the zoning officer to see whether that applies to this particular thing. So the idea is to reduce the vertical and somewhat horizontal scatter. Just one other comment, David, you mentioned some challenge to our zoning. The word that describes that is a cumulative amendment, where they sue the township zoning, and in the courts they can challenge it and sometimes be successful. In fact, that's how Lexington Point got started on that, because their zoning was not allowed by the township. Keystone did not own the land when it was approved. Some of the developer filed the cumulative amendment, I think in 1996 or something like that. And he was successful and then sold the land to Keystone, which they have the benefits of the cumulative amendment. But the word is cumulative amendment.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember what it
No
was.
other than Donna, you're an incredibly talented administrator and negotiator. Tenacious, yes. Very good.
I learned
Have a
from
pleasant
you.
evening.
Thank you, John. Antia will come up. Yeah.
Hey, just to make a correction there, Dave, the word is curative, not cumulative.
Curative. Thanks, but yeah, curative.
Okay, I know I wasn't on the agenda, but I do want to give you a quick update on Big Elk Creek. We now have meetings scheduled. So there's a meeting scheduled through Microsoft Teams on January 15th with Secretary Dunn. She is our decision maker, so she's the one that will get to say yay or nay to converting it back to preserve status. That meeting is for task force members only, not open to the public or the stakeholders. And our last task force meeting was scheduled for the week after that on January 21st. And we do have some movement with our letters of support. So obviously we already had London, Britton, Elk, and Franklin. East Nottingham has recently written a letter. Lower Oxford has written a letter. County commissioners wrote their letter and submitted it the other week. ORPC is writing a letter right now. So is Cato. We also have the SAVE organization and Penn Township writing letters, and Oxford Fire and EMS has agreed to support ELK. West Nottingham and Upper Oxford, I do believe, are also working on letters as well. So we're working on it. We're getting there. And the more letters we can get, more letters of support for the townships, the better it will look, the easier it will be for us to make a statement with the senators and say, you know, all of your constituents are backing us at this point. Cato was a pretty big deal to get, so I'm really happy to see that they came through. And that's about it.
And Tia,
Yes.
I know you're a pusher, so this, I'm sure the answer can be yes, but you're going to try to get all these letters in before you meet with Dunn.
I'm
right?
trying.
Yeah.
So
Great.
we're pushing on it. We're also reaching out to London Grove and New London Township as well, because they have not agreed to letters yet as of yet. So I'm working all the channels I can,
Yeah.
pushing everybody I can to try to support us.
So you have our letter.
I do.
And it's signed.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you would like from us that could help you as you kind of lead this charge? Thank you.
I mean, if you are comfortable and you know the other townships that haven't written you letters yet, you know, just having you reach out to them and say, could you please support us?
Sure.
Because the more that we all work together and the more of a united front we are, the better off we'll be and the stronger message we send. And now that Cato is supporting us, I think that's kind of a big deal, right? That's most of the townships in Chester County that are involved. So if we can reach out to any of our contacts there, that would be fantastic too. So New London and London Grove are two that we haven't talked to yet. I know Representative Lawrence said he would reach out to someone in London Grove. I know you're here, but West Grove and Avondale Fire and EMS, if you guys would be willing to support the townships and write a letter, that would be incredible. Or we can write a letter for you and have you sign it, just something to support the ongoing effort, because I know that's going to be a strain if their plans go forth. It would be a strain on fire and EMS as well.
You said John is talking to someone from London Grove.
Yes.
Do we know anybody from New London that we could reach out to? All right, good.
And then any of the other outlying townships like that aren't directly connected to us, the further out we go, you know, if we can. Exactly.
It's for the whole state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we can keep going into Kennett or into, you know, West Nottingham or any of the other townships, if we have any connections anywhere that we can influence.
I asked this question, I think, last time, and I don't remember what the answer was. So I apologize if I'm asking again. So one of the criticisms, and I think it's a rightful criticism, is in Maryland you have to pay to park at their state parks.
Yes.
You have to pay to access their parks, and in Pennsylvania, you don't. It's free for everybody. So this is kind of a backdoor way for folks who want to enjoy, say, Fair Hill, to not have to pay for parking. What's Maryland's position on what this plan is, and how are they seeing this? As I would anticipate people using this, using our side of, say, the park and preserves to access.
So they already are using our side to access.
Oh, I know. I understand.
From what I have been told, Fair Hill and Pennsylvania DCNR are working together.
Okay.
They have discussed limiting the size of the parking lots to not accommodate horse trailers, because then they'll lose out on the parking for the horse trailers. However, DCNR does want the parking lots large enough to accommodate school buses. So if you're accommodating a school bus,
yeah.
So I'm not really sure. It's hard if anybody has contacts with someone in Fair Hill that we can get more information from, but everything I've been told is they're working together.
Sure.
And I've noticed DCNR has, and I actually went on the one hike, they've been putting joint hikes together for joint state parks. So you would go and park in Maryland and pay the parking fee. And then you would hike from Maryland into Big Elk with both someone from Fair Hill and someone from DCNR. The one that I went on, you actually parked in Fair Hill, paid the fee, and then drove your car through the fields till you were over the state line in Pennsylvania, where you parked your car and then hiked back to your car. And so they're trying to, you know, I think that's what's happening as far as I know.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hang in there.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you do.
We do.
All right. Do we have any other public comment? Oh, sure.
Praveen again, thank you for your time. This time not about approvals, but like the sewer plant, right? Like, see, when on the agreement that it was sent to us, it says like once the municipality agency takes over the facility, you will pay only the rate paid by all other sewer users served by the agency, both inside and outside the Lexington Point community. Is it like a fair statement? Like,
So I just want to be clear, the way it's set up, only Lexington Point, only residents of Lexington Point will pay for the wastewater treatment plant in Lexington Point. So and I want all the taxpayers in Franklin Township to know that it's not something that we spread out over all of Franklin Township to pay for this wastewater treatment plant. It really is the responsibility of the residents in Lexington Point. And that's why I've made such a big deal with Mickey to say, so say you have 38 houses, right? Or say you even have 15 houses. If 5 people say they're not going to pay, that's a tremendous burden on the other 10. That's I don't even know how you manage that. So that's why we are really by regulation, a law, Guy may know what the rules are, but we cannot use Franklin Township money outside of Lexington Point to pay for the fees.
If I may offer
Go
just
ahead.
a little bit more clarification to hopefully explain the statement you just read. It makes reference to, fees being the same as essentially the Franklin Township would be charging elsewhere in the township. Franklin Township has no public sewer system, so that was probably, it was probably stock language that the developer used. It's not really applicable in this case.
so like we will be paying that flat rate what was finalized. As of now, it was a margin of 1,800 to some 2,000 change for a year. So like,
So we really at this point don't know that's a range, but you're still working on what the actual cost is going to be, right?
Yeah, I believe the information the developer has been informing residents and future residents is a range of 1,800 to 2,800 with a ballpark of 2,000. I think those are all reasonable. I'm quite sure we're going to fall within that range.
so that's a flat rate for lifetime, like just like every
It won't be
year.
lifetime.
Won't
So-
be lifetime.
So as you know, every costs go up, right?
It's,
So
it's based on the cost of running the unit. It's not hey, here's your one-time fee and that's it. There's going to be a cost to run the unit, and as the cost of that unit increases over time, that cost gets spread out amongst the residents in that development.
38 homes. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, will it like house? Will it have some insurance or something? Like, because the sewer plant is surrounded by big tall trees. Like tomorrow, if for a storm or something, and then tree falls on one of them and then gets damaged.
Still, once again, we are planning to have insurance, right?
Yes, and Jeff, being his ever capable self, has already coordinated with your insurance provider and looped me in to just get a ballpark idea of what it's going to cost. But yeah, all the structures would be insured out there.
We will do everything we can to manage even though we're not paying for it ourselves, you're part of us, right? So we will do everything we can to manage the cost on your benefit. Just for example, when we looked for the operator, we made sure we looked at 3 different operators and looked for the best deal that we could get based on their capabilities and also what their costs were. And so we're continually to do that to make sure we don't want you to have to pay 1 penny more than you have to. And I know Stan's going to get this together for you, but there is a period of time where Lexington Point continues to run the plant, and they'll pay a lot of the costs as we get on our feet. So it's not, we're not going to get hit day one, but we'll build up some of our reserves, and they're also helping us with some reserves. So there is a lot of cushion put into this as best we can, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I fully understand what you're saying, but
don't they have, they're putting money aside for capital equipment, Lexington Point.
there is capital reserve funding
Right.
that is separate from the user fees we're talking about. That's a different pot of money altogether.
Right, but eventually user fees are going to have to be used 10 years from now. We're going to have to buy stuff. It may not be covered by that initial fund, right? That part of the user
Correct.
fees are going to go for capital too.
Yeah, the reason to have a capital reserve fund is so those kind of expenditures up a pump that we all think might fail every 15 years. We've already got the money budgeted and set aside for that. So that is not affecting the ongoing user fees. It's a separate fund. Yeah.
So we're doing everything we can with Lexington Point, and they've actually been pretty good about agreeing to put that money up and have it there. But it is an expense that you have to keep in mind. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming out. All right, do we have any other public comment?
About the logic Lexington Point residents have to pay for waste treatment plant and not spread out over the rest of the township. The wastewater treatment plant is the only one in Franklin Township. Every other resident in the township has their own on-lot disposal system. And they installed it or bought it, and they are responsible for maintaining and operating it. So for them to assume somebody else's cost would be entirely unfair.
Yeah, it's the comment from John Auerbach was the reason that we are just talking about this in terms of Lexington Point and the cost of Lexington Point is this sewer treatment plant is unique to Lexington Point and serves only Lexington Point residents. So this is why why they must incur the cost of running running this plant, as opposed to everyone else in this township, or most everyone else in this township who has their own on-lot septic and well system. All right, so do we have any other public comment? All right, not hearing any, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Oh, it's 9:45 p.m. Can I get a second?
Hey, Jim, that's
All right, Jim, you got one. Got another one. All right, any discussion?
Just so we got a lot done today. So I
Yeah,
think
thank
we
you.
should
Good
be,
meeting, everybody. And
Good meeting.
thanks for all the folks who came out, and I appreciate all the public comment. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. And with that, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, motion carries 5-0. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas.